right, guys, it's been a while, but we are back, the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. I am Keith Shillan. I am not the host of this new show, which we are calling Last One Standing. It really isn't a new show. It is a bit of a spin-off of Between the Links. And if you've ever listened to Between the Links or listened to the show before that was called Around the Cage, you'd realize by now that they can't get rid of me. But Mike Heck, who was the host of that, he got a job with MMA Fighting, so we're super happy for him, full-time gig with them. So we had to move on, and we thought we'd mix it up, try something completely different, changing the show altogether. So Kyle Steele is actually going to be hosting the show. Unfortunately, he had a family emergency, last minute. And we'll get to our special guest who's jumping in, but we had a James Krause type situation where a guy came in on insanely short notice. But what we're going to do the show is Kyle's going to be the host, and instead of having 3 panelists and a special guest, we're just going to have 4 permanent panelists every week. We're gonna change the way we do the ending of the show. Instead of eliminating guys one by one, we're actually going to have how your questions are answered first. The first 3 rounds, we're actually going to seed you 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're going to have a semifinals, a head-to-head semifinals where the number 1 seed and the number 4 seed will go at it, and then we'll have the 2 seed and 3 seed go at it. Then the 2 winners will move on to a finals, and we'll have a champion that way. The thing I ask guys, and Kyle's not here, is don't compare Kyle to Mike. They're different people. This is a different show, and we have a whole different panel. So if you were a listener of Between the Links, I hope you like this one. But we're really trying to change that. But I also want your feedback and things you don't like. Please don't judge me. Anybody who listens knows I'm more of a panelist than a host. I got thrown on the host role in very short notice. I'll try to do my best. But I want to talk to the 3 guys who should be here every single week. I'm going to go back to an OG, a guy that was with Loudmouth MMA for the longest time, doing the breakdown show. He left the network for a little while, but he is back by popular demand. He is the DraftKings, and I'd say betting guru. He's a man he's one of the head MMA coaches with the DFS Army. He is Shaun Ihasz. Shaun, welcome back to the network, brother. Tell the people what's up.
I am happy to be back. Glad to be doing one of these shows. It became one of those breakdown after breakdown. You do it for, I think I did that show with Kyle for almost 3 years, 2 years, something like that. So I'm happy to be doing something different. I mean, still breakdown fights, but Marcel and Trademark do a great job, and this is something new, something different. I look forward to discussing, arguing, breaking some balls, and it should be a good time. So
we've done one show together. Do you remember what it was?
I really don't, because I was going to say in there, for how long we've both been around, we don't do
shows
together.
We only did one show together. Was it
a breakdown?
It was a breakdown. It was UFC 229, Conor and Khabib. It was the biggest fight in history, and we were on the breakdown show together. But hey, last question before I move on. I'm going to take a little longer on the introduction than we normally do, just because it's a whole new panel. It's not going to be an every week thing. I just want to coming back to Loudmouth, does it feel like returning home and it's happy, or is it like you're making a mistake again? You got that girlfriend that you keep bringing back that crazy ex-girlfriend, and that you should have, everyone's telling your friends oh, don't do it, but you keep going back.
It's somewhere in the middle, because when I left, Kyle was just starting to build this thing up. There weren't all the shows that there are now, and I listened to most of the shows. I love breaking him and Fred's balls on the Not Safe for Work show. So it's nice to be back, and like I said, I'm looking forward to it. But I still feel like the new kid. Even though I was on Loudmouth years ago, I'm definitely still the new kid on the block, because back then it was just me and Kyle, and you jumped on a few, and there weren't all these shows. So
no.
Glad to be back, but I think I'm still the new guy.
Yeah, so the next guy who's going to be a permanent panelist on the show is a guy who's actually done this show when it was Between the Links. He was a guest on the MMA Takeover show. I know he's done a couple other shows with us. He is Patrick Auger. He's a writer for Sherdog and Bodylock. Patrick, how does it feel to have the Loudmouth title with all things? And I know right away you're going to put that when you put that on your Twitter, you're going to put that in front of Sherdog and Bodylock, correct?
Oh yeah, depends on which way you read, but yeah, it's going to be in the front. And I'm just glad that I was undefeated on Between the Links.
Oh, look at this!
I'm excited to be undefeated on this show as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have
9 seconds.
Yeah, we're gonna have fair judging now that Mike Heck is in here, who automatically favored all the guests. But you know what? He got a job at MMA fighting, so it kind of worked out to kiss ass to especially all the guys for MMA fighting. I mean, Jose would win, Alex would win, Damon would win. I'm not saying he didn't have ulterior motives, but yeah, I'll say it. Mike, you're only with MMA fighting because you're a biased judge now. But I'm gonna try to do the same thing now. And no, Mike's fantastic. I'm only joking. And the other permanent panelist is a guy who writes for Combat Press. He also writes for MMA Intel. He is the great Riley Kontek. Riley, you're the first person to do this show without a shirt on. How's that feel?
It seems normal because I don't wear a shirt probably 75% of the time, and that includes work, which is in an office.
Okay. I mean, are you joking or are you being serious?
It's up to your imagination.
There you go.
Question for next week.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. So, just so you know, we've had a panelist have to shave his head and go full, like, I don't know, what do they call it, with the hair all on the bottom and bald on top. So
the Costanza.
Yeah, the George Costanza look, or yeah. So maybe that's going to happen here. But guys, just before I get to our special guest, I just want to say this. Craig, as you guys know, has moved on from the network for other work outside. No bad beef or anything like that. So we're really excited. And Davison, we just thought that we wanted to make this not like Between the Links and have too many of the same guys. So you're kind of just stuck with me from the Between the Links guys. So that's why I did nothing against Davison. Obviously, Davison's still with the network doing other things. And the guy who's coming in, he is our James Krause. I hope the judges are watching during the contest. Unlike I think it was the James Krause. I know that was one of the controversies that night. He's not moving up in weight, but he's taken on with no notice and being the only person who didn't even get to see the question. So he's got a huge uphill climb. But he's a very intelligent guy who could probably do it. He's Ryan Sprague of MyMMANews. Ryan, what's up, my man? How you doing?
Not much. I'm always in Mike Heck's shadow. That's been going on for about 10 years now, since he and I both lived in Berkshire County, Massachusetts, and we were two bartenders that would go into each other's bars and talk sports when we had our days off. And we actually started doing shows out in the Berkshires for like public television and for local radio. And then we just decided when I moved out to Illinois, we were going to start a podcast, and that podcast was the SFLC podcast. So I'm always just 1 to 2 steps behind Mike Heck, it seems like, but that's not a bad position to be in any regards whatsoever.
Yeah, no, that Mike has that shadow. So this is what we're going to do. Just to explain the show, if you haven't listened to it. I'm going to ask questions. These guys are going to debate the answers. They're going to have 45 seconds. I'm going to score it. Unlike what we used to do, we used to announce who won the round. We're not going to do that. We're only going to announce the seeding after 3 questions, and I'll seed them first, second, third, and fourth. The first will battle fourth, second battle third. The higher seeds will get to pick if they want to go first in the second, with the highest seed always getting the choice. So if the number 2 seed wins, the number 4 seed wins. The number 2 seed will get to pick the finals if we want to go first or second. There is the rebuttal rule, which is in effect if every guest gets 1 rebuttal. All they have to do is put it in the chat like this. Just put the word rebuttal, and I will get to you. I should put an L at the end, rebuttal. You get 1 chance, and make sure you use it wisely. So with the blind draw, the first person up is Mr. Patrick Auger. Patrick, the big news this week. And I mean, there's really 2 big news, but the big news that kind of broke today is this, this ongoing coronavirus pandemic is canceling sports, but there is one league that is still trying to put on shows. That league is the league that gets the most attention in the world of MMA, and that is the UFC. Dana White is still adamant that UFC 249 will go down April 18th. He does not have a location. It was originally supposed to be in Brooklyn, New York. That is all but been canceled. And It was originally supposed to be headlined by Khabib Nurmagomedov fighting Tony Ferguson. Khabib has announced that he is stuck in Russia and he can't travel out, and the UFC is looking to move on with him. It hasn't been confirmed that he's been taken off the card, but all signs look like to that. So, Patrick, my question to you is, how likely is it that the UFC gets it done? And if they do get this thing to happen, I mean, what are the plans going to be?
So, I mean, if you look at the way that this pandemic has unfolded, right? I actually have been following this back since December and January when it outbroke in China, and the way of the exponential growth and the way that it affects every country is it comes on pretty fast once it gets into your area. It's just the way that it works. And if you think about it, it was about 17 days ago, about March 13th, March 12th, when things were pretty much still normal. You heard about some cases, you heard about, things are going on, but everything was still open, everything's going on. That was only 17 days ago, and now it's like we're in a completely different world. If you're talking about April 18th, that's 19 days from today. So I don't think there's almost any chance that this event's going on. I know Dana's going to try and pull out all the stops. I know they're going to try and do something similar to maybe what WWE is doing with hosting in a performance center or some kind of closed off arena. But it's only going to get worse before it gets better, and almost every major projection for this thing has the peak of cases in most states hitting in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I can't imagine they're going to be able to pull this off. If they somehow do, it's going to be a hodgepodge of whoever they can get last minute, and I think you're going to end up seeing a Francis Ngannou Rosenstruck headliner, or Ferguson versus maybe Gaethje if they can get people out of the state. But it all depends on where fighters are currently, right? They're getting these calls right now. They all have to get in the same state, in the same place, so they can get it on. Otherwise, if they're in a different state at this point, I doubt you're going to be able to fly. I doubt you're going to be able to just get on the road and get there. So I'm going to say very unlikely. And if they do get it, it's going to look like a weird fight night card that's not going to be worth your pay-per-view money.
Riley, how confident are you?
I think it will happen. I understand what Patrick is saying with the coronavirus threat, but the fact of the matter is that the UFC does depend on these cards for revenue. I mean, just off the ESPN cards, you're talking $9 million an event. Now you have a pay-per-view event. Even if you can scratch together decent guys to fight, people are yearning for sports right now. There's nothing on TV other than pro wrestling, and there's if you're a guy like me, it's like I don't really care about pro wrestling. I'd actually really watch real sports with real men, not fake actors doing weird stuff. But my thing is that whatever they can get together, I think it is going to end up being Ferguson versus Gaethje. It doesn't matter how unappealing the card may look on paper. The fact is that people want to watch fights and they want to watch any sort of professional sporting event. So the fact is that it's going to happen, and it's going to sell a pretty decent pay-per-view just off the fact that people want to watch live sporting events that they just can't get right now.
So right now we got Patrick saying it's not going to happen, Riley saying it is going to happen. Ryan, who are you agreeing with?
I'm agreeing with Patrick, but I'm going to use Riley's explanation kind of against him. Dana White is trying to be this caped crusader, this hero, right? But what it comes across as Dana White being an opportunist and trying to get the sports world as an any port in a storm situation. He's trying to get this pay-per-view to go and thinking that he's going to see exponential growth in pay-per-view numbers because people are going to pay money just to see any live sport. But I think it's going to blow up in his face. Like Patrick said, you're going to have a lot of fighters who aren't going to be able to get there. We don't know where this fight's going to take place. There's no place legally that's going to sanction this. We all understand this. So Dana's taking on a very huge, dangerous consequence for him even trying to host this card. And I don't know what the pay-per-view numbers look like for people who bought this pay-per-view way ahead of time. Mike Heck and I used to talk about it all the time. Don't buy this pay-per-view, any pay-per-view ahead of time, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the sports world. But I think it's very irresponsible of Dana White to even try to continue this. I understand that Khabib's about to go through Ramadan, and so we have to push this back regardless. And with this national pandemic, look, we've been waiting for this fight between Khabib and Tony Ferguson for years now. We can all suck it up and wait the extra 5 months rather than Tony putting his title contention on the line with literally any fight that's not against Khabib. There's no point to this fight card whatsoever other than people trying to capitalize on the fact that there are no other sports going on.
Last one, wrapping up the round. Shaun, how you feel about this?
It's probably not going to happen. I think there's a 10% chance this actually happens. For all the reasons you mentioned, I don't want to rehash and go through it. You got logistics of getting fighters there, where's this going to be, etc. But to build off, what Ryan was just talking about, I totally disagree. This is a free roll for Dana White, a total free roll. If he pulls it off, everyone's going to start watching the UFC, even if it's a crap card. You're going to get some casuals in there. People are just yearning for sport. And it could be bad. He's got a fallback excuse. Hey, I did the best I could. We had something. And if it blows up in his face, worst case scenario, God forbid some people start getting coronavirus for it. The fighters want to fight. These guys have to get paid. The UFC, yeah, we're still the redheaded stepchild. We've made, or MMA, I should say. We're making inroads. We're on ESPN. We're getting there. But it's not totally mainstream yet. Don't totally fool yourselves. And this is just Dana White taking a gamble to try and get it there. And if it blows up in his face, we're all still going to be here. I don't think he'll take a little bit of bad PR, but I don't think it's anything that's going to devastate him. It's a total free roll. Try and grow MMA. I'm all for it. I just don't think he's going to be able to pull it off, but I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, I think we're all rooting for him. We were all rooting for a huge mega fight between Tony and Khabib, and it doesn't seem to happen. No, I'm going to pick, because, listen, I prep for these, so I want to get some answers, but I'm going to hold back and not give. But one thing I want to pick a fight with Riley, you get right at it, is I think it's you're assuming too much by saying no matter what they throw out that it'll sell, because UFC Brasilia went down. It was the only event happening. It was on ESPN, and nobody watched it when there was, it was same situation. So you might be absolutely right if they can get a name. So let me ask this, Ron. I want to have two questions. Actually, I'm going to ask this one question. Does the UFC have to have a name to make this sell? And there's people throwing names out there. Jorge Masvidal throw his name in the hat. You hear these rumors about Justin Gaethje, which I really think that makes no sense for Justin Gaethje to take right now. When ESPN reported that he's in negotiations for a fight with Conor McGregor, why are you going to take a fight with Tony Ferguson on just over 2 weeks' notice? The guy who's known for cardio without a training camp, and you can say, "Oh, he's always in shape." Listen, he's probably hitting a punching bag in his garage. How much training could he do? And the belt's not even in line. To me, it makes no sense. So, what name realistically could save this card where it could be a big success? I'm going to kick it off to Riley.
Again, I think that, and I'm going to just rebuttal what you just said there. The fact that UFC Brasilia probably didn't attract a lot of eyes is, a lot of people didn't actually know it was on ESPN. Only people who actually follow MMA probably knew that was getting transitioned over from ESPN+. The second point I have, it was also St. Patrick's Day weekend, which isn't exactly a big sit around the TV and watch sports weekend. It's a big, hey, I'm going to go get drunk at the bar for 26 hours straight weekend. So, I totally get where you're coming from, but
Sure.
There are reasons behind that. But to get to your question, I would say that, any halfway decent name that's a top 15 fighter in any division is going to get a look, simply because, again, as I said before, people want to watch sports. And if you can get a guy that has somewhat of a recognizable name, and it doesn't even have to be somebody that, a mainstream person who doesn't really pay attention as much as guys like us. As long as it's somebody who if they can look at their friend that likes MMA and goes, "Hey, is this guy any good? Is he an exciting fighter? Yeah, cool, I'll watch it." I think that's kind of the thing you're going to get there. So I'm not going to give you a name. I'm just going to stick to my main point earlier, which is that whatever happens, it's not going to set box office records for pay-per-view, but it's certainly going to do enough that it's going to justify actually doing the event in general.
So let me change this question. Let me throw something in. Does anybody have a name that they think they could actually get on the card and it would make sense? Does anybody have it a name, or is that, or everyone in the same boat? What?
Jorge
Conor
Masvidal.
McGregor.
Well, yeah, of course, Connor, but that's not going to happen. I'd say
Oh no, I don't think it's gonna happen. But
Masvidal.
that's
Masvidal. Okay, who would
Because it's probably in Florida.
Masvidal fight?
God, how crazy would it be if they could get Colby, both of those guys in Florida? They can't.
I mean, Colby's offering. He's
already
offering to fight Woodley.
That'd be great. Imagine they could throw together Colby and Masvidal in the shit show.
I mean, they're in.
Sorry.
The wrestling is doing it in Florida. Could they follow going into Florida? And I know that's their own facility and everything, but could they go in Florida? And then that would really limit the travel thing because they. Yeah, I don't know if Colby's in Florida right now because sometimes he goes back to Oregon. But if he's in Florida, Masvidal's in Florida. I mean, that would be a dream.
I don't think it's gonna. Well, I want to rebut a couple points.
Sure, go ahead.
That's been said. So first of all, there's no way Florida's gonna license it. There's no way in heck that even you could put it in somebody's garage. There's no way Florida's gonna license it. Second of all, talking about watching fights because sports aren't on. That's true to an extent, but the other thing to think about is that they're talking about they're estimating that by the in the next month or so you could be looking at a 32% unemployment rate. So people aren't just going to be throwing down money for pay-per-view, especially if it's not a huge drawing card. Yeah, they want to watch sports, but pay $65 right now when I lost my job.
That's a great point.
I'm not doing that. So then you're looking at a bunch of people maybe still watching illegally streaming, but you're going to have a bunch of people that don't know how to do that or aren't going to do that. So I don't think, unless you get a massive name out there like Conor, or you get like some kind of matchup that's comparable to Khabib and Tony, which I don't think is possible at this point, I don't think you're going to do that well in pay-per-view buys. I think you're going to do maybe all right. Like maybe like 150 to 200,000, if that.
I agree with you.
And then on top of all that, it's, like Dana wants to get this done, but a big part of that is, money, as Riley pointed out, more so for Endeavor because they're struggling. But I can't see in any way, shape, or form just because you get this card together that instantly equals a ton of pay-per-view buys, especially given what's going on right now.
Right. Last one. Ryan, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I mean, if there was any name that really makes sense with this, if they could even get it done, and we've always looked at this guy as kind of the hero of saving cards time and time again. You could see Cowboy try and step in, whether he fights Tony or not. And again, Tony said he wants to run it back with Cowboy because he doesn't like how that fight ended. And, you can't fault the guy and all the respect in the world, but with Khabib out, or if Khabib is out, because like we said, nothing has been 100% confirmed at this point. We could see Tony and Cowboy Part 2, so long as Cowboy doesn't blow his fucking nose.
Sean, I know I didn't really give you a lot of time. You want to jump in?
I think we're kind of just spinning our wheels here because I agree it's not going to be anywhere, and my name is Jorge Masvidal just because for whatever reason my gut tells me that's the most likely, and there's the most interesting matchups just because of the personality he's created for himself. As much as I'm sure in a different episode of the show I'll give my thoughts on Jorge Masvidal, but he's probably the most likely to get a draw from the casuals who will actually potentially be on this card. I mean, the rest we could throw out names, but he's the most realistic because Tyron Woodley's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he can get on this card, and I'll be a little excited, but that's not going to do anything.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on. So as the world is falling apart, the world of MMA is falling apart with the ongoing pandemic, some things have not changed in the world of MMA, and that is the great Jon Jones. In my opinion, the greatest fighter of all time is also... he is an absolute champion inside the cage, but not outside the cage. Mr. Bones himself has got himself arrested again, this time for aggravated DWI. It was negligent use of a firearm. I know he got a citation for no proof of insurance. People say no insurance. That's not true. I heard someone going a big rant about not having insurance on the car. It's no proof of insurance, which is you have to have the card showing. But anyways, I don't remember what Kyle's question was, but it was guys, what do you do with Jon Jones? Like, has your opinion of Jon Jones changed at all? Is this
how upset with John are we?
Yeah, there you go. So I'll let Shaun. You knew the question. These weren't my questions.
So aggravating.
These weren't my questions, so I apologize. So Shaun, what's going through your head with the Jon Jones news?
I need a moment of silence and get real quiet before I get animated. Guys, Jon Jones is a drug addict. If you are surprised by this, you get your head checked. Like, this is just what happens. DC said it best, and I don't even know where I saw Twitter or Instagram. When guys like that sit in isolation and don't have anything to do, this is what happens. Like, what does it do to his reputation? Absolutely nothing. This is what we know about Jon Jones, period. How upset with Jon am I? None, because this hurts his legacy. I have all kinds of things about cheaters, but the only reason I'm really upset about Jon Jones is that I have to talk about this again. Why are we having this conversation for the 50th bleeping time? This is who Jon Jones is. Don't be surprised. He needs a new. If this is going to stop, he needs a new camp.
That's right.
Needs rehab. Like, this is just, we're going to see it over and over again. It does nothing to his reputation. Those who love Jon Jones are going to love him. Those who can separate his persona from his MMA ability have already done that, and those who can't. The camps are broken out. Like, this is it. He's not going to save anything. He's not going to do anything. Jon is at his best PR-wise when he's just embracing it. I'm sick of this. I hate the pretend nice guy thing. Just be a scumbag. I get it. You're a scumbag. You're a fighter. You're allowed to be a scumbag. There's plenty of them out there. Stop pretending.
Yeah, I actually think he would sell more if he was more of a scumbag. Ryan, what's your thoughts on the Jon Jones situation?
Was that Riley or Ryan?
Right, Ryan. You.
Oh, sorry. I'm still trying to get used to the accent. It's been a few years. I'm not surprised. Like Shaun said, I think that he said it perfectly. But this is the question of, should we be shocked about this? No, we shouldn't. The question of, is it time for us to legitimately do something? Yes, it is. Every other major sporting event has a players' association and has, in some respect, a code of conduct, a code of personal character. And for some reason, with the MMA community being so new, they've seen the mistakes of every other main sporting event and has the ability to right the ship earlier, and they flat out don't. Should we see a punishment from the UFC? Absolutely we should. Are we going to historically? No. Dana, as Ariel Helwani said it, and anyone who follows the sport knows, Dana will never go out and punish a fighter unless something serious has happened. He has always left it to the individual state athletic commissions, to the governing bodies of the states themselves when this happens. It's infuriating, and unfortunately, we've seen Jon Jones' title stripped before. I don't think it's going to happen, especially when we look at the fact that Errol Spence ended up having his second, going over to boxing, getting his second title, and then turning around and having a DUI, and he has to answer for that in the state of Texas. But no one from the WBC, or I think it's the IBF, I believe those are the two that he holds, has officially said that they were stripping him of either of those titles. So I have no reason to believe that they're going to strip Jon Jones of this. I agree with Shaun that, yes, every time that you want to like Jon Jones, he pulls shit like this. And it's embarrassing for the sport, Time is going to tell how we feel about this fighter, and it's going to be after he's gone and what he really meant for the sport. And unfortunately, his personal life, in my opinion, is going to be on par with his fighting career.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by Jon Jones that, in my opinion, I think he's the greatest fighter of all time. And to do all this stuff and still not really have a loss on his record is absolutely crazy to me. I mean, you compare him to like a Michael Jordan who used to go out gambling all night, guy like Babe Ruth would be drinking all night. These are, to me, Jon Jones is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of athlete. So, Patrick, my question to you is, are you starting to worry that all this stuff, whether he gets punished by the UFC, whether he gets punished by the... We got to remember, these are misdemeanors. He's not on probation anymore. So, like, a lot of people, I've seen people going on social media being like, oh, that's it, he's going to jail. This is his third time getting DUI and all this. He's not on probation. This is only his second in Arizona. They can't punish him for the one in New York. I'm sorry, not Arizona, New Mexico. He couldn't punish him for the one in New York. It's misdemeanor. Even the gun charge is a misdemeanor. So I really don't think there's going to be much, like, people are going to be very upset when they find out, like, Jon Jones did, like, a day in prison. Like, maybe not even that. Community service, 60 hours of community service where he's got to teach youth wrestling or something. So, Patrick, I don't know where I'm going with the question because I'm not usually hosting it. So, Patrick, does this affect him in the octagon?
Not really. I mean, so, you know, we can, it's already been talked about that he clearly has an issue and he needs some help with that. And I hope he gets it because, again, as you mentioned, one of the best fighters in the octagon, has some troubles outside of it. But in terms of, you know, being upset about it, no, I'm not upset. I expected that this would happen at some point. And in terms of the reputation, though, I mean, here's the thing. You know, Ryan brought up that MMA doesn't have a code of conduct, but in 2013, the UFC released a code of conduct that they had for all of, I don't know, a year, and then they let go of it because they just said, no, we're not going to even bother with this. You know, we're going to play favorites. It's whatever. But, you know, it's all this does. I think this kind of just boosts his reputation as that MMA bad boy who, you know, he's already done, as you mentioned, these are misdemeanors. It's not the worst thing he's done. He didn't hit a pregnant lady and drive off again. He didn't harm anyone in the body cam video. You know, he seems to be very compliant with the officers, doesn't seem to cause much trouble there. If anything, it's, you know, people are going to get riled up about it. People are going to say this is a problem. This is an issue. We're talking about it again. But in the long run, it just solidifies his status as, you know, the person that a lot of fans love to hate. Because here you go again, Jon Jones, you know, getting a DWI, getting a gun charge. He's probably going to get a slap on the wrist of community service and a large fine. He's going to keep his belt. He's going to come out there and say, you know, I've changed. I've done a lot of, you know, deep digging again. And people are just going to eat that up. And they're either going to believe him and side with him and be like, oh, yeah, he's come back. Or they're going to hate him even more because here he is again, just screwing up, like pissing away opportunities. And, you know, here we are. So it's one of those things where I think, if anything, it just kind of solidifies his bad boy persona of being that guy that you know, if you don't love him, you can't wait to see him lose. And that's only going to increase buys and help his brand. So that's my thoughts on it.
So you're with him that you think the bad guy look is a good look for him, and I actually agree with it. You can sell bad guy. Riley's got that stare, like he's ready to go, man. So Riley, what's your thoughts on Jon Jones?
I'm in the camp that Jon Jones can do no wrong. All right. I'm all for this. I'm all for having the bad guy, as you just said. You always have to have guys like that. Listen, look at his last couple pay-per-view numbers. The guy sells pay-per-views, and a lot of the reason isn't because people want to watch Jon Jones fight. It's, as you said, people want to watch Jon Jones lose, and they're waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
So I want to actually touch on something that Ryan said. He said that this is embarrassing to the sport. The fact of the matter is that Jon Jones is an individual. He is not the sport itself. This is not embarrassing to MMA. This is embarrassing to Jon Jones. Jon Jones does not represent MMA. He represents himself. You know, in the illustrious words of Charles Barkley, he's not a role model, okay? Don't do as he does. Just watch his fights, and you don't have to emulate him in his personal life. You might want to emulate him in the cage, but that doesn't mean that he's, you know, again, I would think he would say he's not a role model unless he's trying to do that fake good guy thing that he used to do in the Cormier fights, but then he got called out in the backstage of that ESPN, you know, the famously leaked video. But I just want to say one more thing, because I saw this on Twitter today, and this is why I just get hot at MMA journalists all the time, and this is why I'm usually one of the biggest villains in the MMA Twitter community. I saw an article that says the UFC must suspend Jon Jones for a year to send a message. It's just like, can these people be any more melodramatic? It's just like, relax, okay? It's not like he went in the cage and killed somebody or did something over the line. Yes, what he did was stupid. Yes. To touch on, I think, on what Shaun said, he probably did something stupid because he's cooped up in the house like the rest of us on quarantine and then just went out and did something dumb. Not that he hasn't done dumb things in the past. But the fact of the matter is that Jon Jones has this personality. We shouldn't be surprised when he does dumb things, just like you guys aren't surprised that I'm saying dumb things on this podcast when I'm not wearing a shirt and I'm wearing a stupid mustache, okay? These are just things that happen in MMA that you have to accept and live with. If you don't like Jon Jones and you don't want to support his business, don't buy his pay-per-views, and that's a way to send the message. Otherwise, shut up.
Can we call this podcast the anti-virtue signaling podcast? Because I'm 100% on board with that. I can't believe virtue signaling has made its way to freaking MMA. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Am I part of that? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't really know. Those who there's somebody I have in mind who I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Let's not pick any enemies.
Well,
You're not we have enough enemies. We have enough enemies.
I'm not going to do it.
I'll put them name by name. I don't care.
So let me say this, because I do want to address some things, and I'm going to get to Patrick real quick, but I want to get to that because so people who are listening, when we say be the bad guy that it sells pay-per-views, be a jerk, whatever, be the party guy. What we are not saying, none of us are saying, and I'm sure we can talk for it, we're not saying it's okay to drink and drive, because that could kill people. Okay? We're not saying to grab a gun and shoot it in the air and shoot guns. We're not saying that. That's stupid. No, I'm a police officer. I'm not saying that I've arrested people for DUIs. So none of us saying that, but like, don't talk about Jesus like after you just got arrested last week. All right. Patrick, go ahead, man. What do you got to say?
All right, so here's the thing. While I am again in the camp, obviously I just made my statement that I'm in the camp of this just builds his reputation as the bad guy. What I do touch on what Riley said about that it doesn't reflect on the MMA as a sport as a whole. It's true that his actions don't reflect on MMA as a sport as a whole, but the UFC allowing him to go on unpunished does reflect on the sport as a whole, in the sense that, as Shaun brought up earlier, you've been taking these steps to be more mainstream. You've been taking these steps to move into more of a mainstream light. If you look at the MLB, the NFL, NBA, when they fine or suspend people, if Jon Jones was in the NFL right now, that man would be suspended for a year, that at least, for all the crap he's done, if not longer. Same with MLB and all of that. And so it's one of those things where it's totally fine if we want to go and be more, we're over here in that stepchild realm. And if we just, if the sport wants to own that, then by all means, you can own that. And this is just another day in the life. And yep, okay, he did this thing. That's a whole issue, whatever. It's a lot like boxing. If you're trying to make moves to go beyond boxing and more mainstream to be, NFL, MLB, all of that, then you have to, it's on the sports promotions to really enforce rules that will get there. And this type of thing, by just letting Jon go, slap on the wrist and, we're going to go forward, you're essentially going to end up with, being that stepchild.
I love that no one wants to say redheaded stepchild when you have the redheaded host. Shaun, go ahead.
I have to, just because I don't know what else I'm going to burn anyone, and this is a good conversation. Are we talking, I guess this is a question back to both Patrick and Ryan, do you think it's just suspending Jon Jones as the NFL would or anything like that, is it just to fit in, or do you think that'll actually work?
Oh, it's just to fit in.
So then why? Why just fit in? Why be different? Because it's not going to work. I'm glad you didn't go that route, because Josh Gordon is the biggest example of that. Suspended for a year. All right, great. To fit in, you kind of have to eat some crap here and walk a line. The UFC should be doing more, but suspending a year is just too much, because then you're going to lose all the revenue Jon Jones is going to bring in, revenue that the UFC and Endeavor desperately need if they're going to get to that NFL status. So there's got to be a middle ground. The problem is, I think Dana White is too far in the camp. I'm hesitant to go full on, let's be just like the NFL and NBA and collective bargaining and lockouts. Like, there's got to be a happy medium. Yes, the fighters need more, but just flat out go and suspend for a year, that's not the right answer either. So there's got to be a middle ground. To say this would fix Jon Jones, let's get rid of that. Because you can go on and on. This is the way, unfortunately, some of the greats are. Keith gave us the whole list: Michael Jordan and Pete Rose, for God's sake, all these guys. So it's just kind of, it comes with the territory. You have to do more, but I think my favorite word, the virtue signalers are wanting too much. I think to say, hey, you should never fight again. Like, listen, it's a combat sport, and I don't want to diminish it because I want to see it grow. There needs to be its own set of rules that I agree need to be stricter than what they are now.
Yeah, and just to point out real quickly, I was just using that if he was in the MLB for that stuff, for everything he's done cumulatively, he would be suspended. I agree with your point. It should be a middle ground. Yeah.
I got you. You just gave me an opening.
Yeah.
Go away, Keith's cat. Go away.
My son came out from the bedroom. I was
Oh,
trying not to
okay.
tell him to go downstairs. Oh, I want to build off one thing that Shaun said. One thing we have to be careful to. It's a lot easier for the NFL to say, "Go away, insert star player, go away, Antonio Brown." You're still the Pittsburgh Steelers fans are still going to watch. The team is the product, not the individual as much. Now, obviously, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, and there's a couple guys, but at the end of the day, the Patriots are still they just lost Tom Brady, and they're still going to be to sell at the stadium. So. Yeah, man, this is some neck. What I'm really surprised is that no one actually talked about inside the octagon. Jon Jones' last 3 fights, Anthony Smith, he looked like very lackluster. Thiago Santos was the first time he lost a round lost a fight on a judge's scorecard. And then, in my opinion, he lost to Dominic Reyes. He's been doing this stuff to his body for years, which with the cocaine, with this. I'm worried if I am selling stock, and I said it going to the Dominic Reyes fight, and I'm the biggest Jon Jones show. I was the guy who called up Sherdog. They still introduce me on Sherdog as the guy who, before Jon Jones' debut in the UFC, said he's going to be the greatest fighter of all time because I saw him in a local show and I was amazed by this guy.
Just because I'm having a hard time, misremembering, did he lose on a card to Gustafsson? Was that a split?
No, he won unanimous. And the only person, even Reyes, was unanimous. The only person to get a scorecard on Jon Jones is Thiago Santos.
That'll teach me to question the Jon Jones whisperer.
Yeah, no, the Jon Jones, actually the Gustafsson one wasn't even that close. I think he had like a 49-46 scorecard in there. Like, it wasn't even that close.
48-47s and
I think it got 49-46, yeah.
I thought it was 148-47 the other way. All right.
And let me say, Keith, I do agree. I think we should let Jon Jones fight on coke every time.
It hasn't affected him yet. Guys, speaking of, I don't know how I was going to try to transition coke, but I don't want to do that to this guy.
Plugging product.
Yeah. Speaking of a guy that is in a tough decision right now, Kevin Lee announced on Errol Hawani's show that he is going to be leaving the sport of MMA for a year, kind of reevaluating, taking some time off, work on some things. So I'm going to start off with Riley. How do you feel about that decision for him to step away for a year? Was it good? Was it a good decision or a bad decision?
I think it's an incomplete decision because we don't know what the result of that decision is until he steps back into the cage. I think that, I don't think time away is what he needs right now. I think he needs to reassess what he's doing in his fight camps, namely weight cutting, because the fact of the matter is that he's kind of hovered between lightweight and welterweight his last few bouts. And in both, he's kind of struggled to make weight. Even when he's stepped up in a weight class, he seems to have struggled in cutting weight. So I don't even necessarily think it's that I need to step away because I'm doing so much competition, because I think he's only had 5 fights in the last 3 years, or 5 or 6 fights, which it's 2. You're averaging 2 a year. So, I can't say it's a good decision or a bad decision until we see what happens. But the fact is, he's a top 15 fighter in whatever division he chooses to fight in. It's just I think a big thing that affects him when he does step in the cage is that he is cutting too much weight or not cutting weight properly, to the fact that it's affecting his performance in the cage.
Shaun.
I think it's a fantastic decision, because if you have even the smallest hint of doubt in your mind and you get in that cage, you are going to get tuned up. And that's how you end up unconscious, and that's how you shorten your career and hurt whatever status you have so far. Look, to go all the way back, he probably still needs this time. Look, I don't want to get too, but Robert Follis, I think it all goes back to that. What happened there messes people up, and we've heard the story. You know how close Kevin Lee was to him. He's up at TriStar now. I don't think all that is settled. He's clearly, something is not right in the guy's mentality, and I hope it fixes that. I think he needs to get his mind right. Personally, I would suggest a sports psychologist for him. But on top of that, is it going to help him win again? It depends who they give him when they. I think we know who Kevin Lee is now. That's how he could make a great improvement. I think he's a borderline top 10 guy everywhere. Probably not going to challenge again for a title just because of the divisions he in being so deep. Kind of the book's out on him. Maybe he makes a big improvement, but I think we know who he is. Not that he's not a great fighter, not that he can't be entertaining. I think his kind of role in mixed martial arts is going to be set. I think he's going to hover around that Cowboy Cerrone level for a while, and better find out a way to be entertaining and have people watch his fights. I like the guy. Hope he gets his head on right. I do think it's a good decision just because if you're thinking that, you should probably do it. So, I mean, that's my take on it.
So, Brian, let me ask you: if you were someone close to Kevin Lee, you're his manager or you're his coach, something like that, he comes to you, he says, "Should I take a year off? I feel like I'm thinking about taking a year off." Are you saying, "Yeah, take a year off," or are you saying no?
I think this is one of the better times to do it. I mean, you look and he's basically gone win-loss in his last 4 fights. You can't string together wins. You're going to end up being forever a gatekeeper is what I think Shaun was alluding to. You basically hover around that area where the new talent comes in and you're the person they step up against to show where your true skill level is. Now, if Kevin Lee wants to play that role and he can build a successful career being there, then yeah, take a year off, improve on what you need to improve on. Like Shaun said, if you need to go see a therapist, by all means, or a psychologist, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, Kevin Lee is only going to be as good as Kevin Lee's mind will let him be. And right now, if he's thinking that he needs to do that, then as Shaun said, go ahead and take that time off and reevaluate things. Because let's be honest, some people, they don't want to be that gatekeeper. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are in the UFC right now that if they had to come to terms with their role in this sport long term, a lot of them need to be thinking to themselves, look, I'm not going to be championship caliber. They're not. There are several that I could mention in every division that exists that way. But the bottom line is, this is what they do to be a professional athlete. This is how they make their living. This is how they make their money. So there's no shame in the game of staying around as long as you can to make as much money as you can. But there are certain people that probably need to hear this, and I'm sure the UFC fighters will blast me mercilessly for it. If you're not okay being a gatekeeper and you're not okay hearing the fact that you're never going to vie for a championship belt, then this sport isn't for you. So yeah, Kevin, take the time off. See if you're okay with everything that I just kind of presented, and then we'll see you in a year.
Patrick, close it up.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where I think he's going to be forced. Honestly, I think he's going to be forced to take a year off because by the time this whole pandemic is over, they're going to have such a backlog of cards that he's not going to get a chance to fight within a year anyway. But honestly, in terms of, is it going to make a difference? I think Shaun was kind of right in that we've kind of seen where he is right now. We know who Kevin Lee is. He needs to make some major improvements and some, drastic changes if he wants to get to that next level. But one thing is he's young enough. He's 27. He's young enough that, I would say don't take an extended time off and then jump back into the ring. I would say, take easier fights. Like keep fighting semi-regularly, but fight, fringe top 15 or 11 through 15 guys and build up your experience, have that kind of routine going and build your skills that way. Because more often than not, if you see a fighter do that when they're younger, then when they hit their prime, they might be able to actually make huge differences and go on another title run. I think it's very rare in the sport that you see someone step away for several years and then come back and all of a sudden looks like a brand new fighter who's ready to, kick ass and become a new, champion. Essentially, they're either fighting in a different promotion or they're doing something else in the meantime. If you take multiple years away and then come back, I think it's very rare to do that and then end up being, somebody that could vie for a championship. Whereas if you fight those fringe top 15 guys and or lower, top 15 guys, you're going to keep getting experience. You're going to keep working on your skills and be in that mode. I think that's the much better solution than just an extended time off where he's just training skills. So that's what I would recommend for Kevin Lee at this point. He's young enough. Again, a lot of people in lightweight and welterweight are in their mid to late 30s. If he holds out for another, 4 or 5 years, he might still be in his physical prime and have added skills while those guys are declining. He's got, a shot. So I think that's his best move forward.
Yeah, one thing I think you guys all made a lot of good points. One thing that Patrick really did good was stress his age. He's only 27 years old. People are starting to write this guy off. You know who he reminds me a lot of, and not style of fighting, but situation, is Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler was a guy that came in the UFC at a very young age, did very well at first, hit a little rough patches. I think he lost something like 6 out of 8 fights. People gave up on him. He was brought back in the UFC just to be a name for Josh Koscheck to rebound off of, and then went on a run and won the title. So maybe a change of scenery. I like where I think Riley made a really good point is having a year off. He really needs to decide, does he want to change up his diet, get with a nutritionist and get down to lightweight, or does he want to get with a strength and conditioning coach and properly get up to 170? And I actually think Shaun and Ryan also had a really good point about the psychological factor that if you have any doubt the first time you think of retirement, you probably should retire kind of thing. Not that he's thinking of retirement, but just that old, was that slogan they say or whatever? Cliche, yeah, that's the word. I'm going to let Riley and Ryan come back in because I forgot to say before is that you can't use the rebuttal in the playoffs. And first show I'm going to say it. So, Riley, you got anything else to say?
No, not really.
All right. Ryan, anything else?
I'm going to stay with Riley. I think I made my points, and it's hard to rebut when basically all three of us are kind of using different names for the same thing.
Sure. So one thing I want to say to our listeners, if you're used to what you're used to is all of us insulting each other. This is the first episode. Plus, I'm hosting, and I know Patrick knows this. I know Ryan knows this. I know Shaun knows this. I'm going to insult people. I'm going to call you idiots. So the name calling will come next week, I promise. And this is just like I'm just like refreshing my mind a little bit, get some time off, and I'm going to come after these guys next week.
You're playing nice because I'm emotional. That's all right.
I'm trying.
That was the first time we've all met each other.
To be fair, we did a couple of us did kind of trash journalists, and then you didn't let us name names. So
yeah,
I withheld from naming names.
Oh, I think you said journalists. I think you saying.
My question is,
doesn't he just cover WWF now?
Is the word journalist being used loosely? Because there are many different facets of journalism that exist.
I'm going by what they put on their Indeed resume. I'm not going by what they really are.
All right, we're going down a rabbit hole, and I'm going to get myself in trouble if we continue it. So we got to go into the playoff round. I did not do this on purpose. I swear. Every time someone made a good point, I did a check mark. All 4 people have the same exact check marks. I'm not even joking. So this is what I'm going to do.
Sack up and make an order.
I'm just going to sack up and make an order. Yeah. So
I should have easily got last place.
So I have it. I have 17 check marks each person, and it was one. And I was hoping that you guys would jump in and say some things so I could get you guys up. So listen, he came in on 5 minutes notice. So Ryan, you're the number 1 seed. Before I tell you your opponent in the semifinals, do you want to go first or do you want to go second?
I'll defer to the second half.
Okay. What? All right. Because he's not wearing a shirt and he's got as bad of a tan as I do, Riley, you are last.
The last seed?
Yeah, you're going to be coming forward just because you're not wearing a shirt.
A lot of weeks, buddy. I say a lot of absurd things.
Patrick,
Kreischer of this podcast.
Patrick, you're going to be the 3 seed simply because you started the show with, well, I'm undefeated on this. So you have an uphill climb because I'm probably not going to give you the win now. And Shaun, you go to 2 seed. So Shaun, do you want to go first?
Lots of more insults. You suck, Keith.
Yeah, Shaun, do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
All right, so I'm going to start it off with the 4 seed, Riley. One of the big news that came out last week was Michael Chandler, who's been a staple in the Bellator organization. He announced that after he fights his last fight on his contract, the Benson Henry one that's scheduled for early June, we still don't know if that's even going to happen, so the timetable might change. But that he wants to test free agency for the first time since he's established his name. So, tell me, if you were his manager, same kind of situation I asked Ryan with Kevin Lee, if he came to you, what would you suggest? Say all the offers were on the table, where would you suggest that Michael Chandler would go?
I would tell Michael Chandler that I would keep using this. I might jump to the UFC thing or the PFL if you want to go for that $1 million tournament win as bargaining chips to kind of milk more money out of Bellator. The fact of the matter is that Michael Chandler would be probably top 20 in the UFC, maybe top 15, but I don't think he gets much further than that. There's guys with similar skills that are more refined than he is. But the fact is he could still get a damn good paycheck from Bellator. He can use this free agency to try and up his offer from Bellator and get paid more and continue to fight guys that are below him. And I would think that's the best option for him. Now, if he wants to, I also think the PFL is a viable option for him if he's trying to get an easy $1 million payday, because the fact of the matter is that the PFL does have some good fighters, but I don't think they have anybody on the level of Michael Chandler off the top of my head in the lightweight division. So I think that's a viable option as well. He's got to do what's best for him. I think what's best for him is staying in Bellator and taking on mostly guys that are below him and making a pretty damn good payday and fighting 3 to 4 times a year. And still, I haven't watched a Bellator commercial in a long time, but is he still getting, sponsorships? Because he used to be on Dave and Buster's commercials and Monster ads. So, he was making money on that as well. So I think that's his best option because he ain't going to get sponsorships with the UFC.
Ryan, what's your answer?
I agree with him. I don't think he's going to get sponsorships from the UFC just because of obviously what their sponsorship promotion currently is. He mentioned PFL. He mentioned staying in Bellator. I'm shocked that he didn't mention the possibility of going to ONE. However, based on where this pandemic, is saying to come from, I don't know that anybody really wants to go to ONE right now, at least not for the foreseeable future. But, we saw Demetrius Johnson make that move, and what had to have been the most, in hindsight, lopsided trade that the UFC, that ONE could have gotten, getting Demetrius Johnson and then having Ben Askren fight 2 or 3 times and then fucking retire. I think that he could still be a figure in ONE. I think that he could definitely follow in the footsteps of Demetrius Johnson. Of course, not up to that level because Demetrius Johnson, let's be honest, was just a phenomenal fighter who lost once. And that's all that it was. And it basically took a rematch for Demetrius Johnson to lose to Henry Cejudo. And I think that he could extend his fight career if he ended up going to ONE. I don't know if he'd be fighting on as many cards, but I think it would improve the ONE promotion. And that, again, is a bargaining chip to Bellator, probably more so than the PFL is, because we've heard about all the insane things that happened with PFL's playoffs and fighters who got injured, and then all of a sudden we saw a fighter Christopher Curtis get like 2 or 3 shots at still getting $1 million.
Alex Nicholson.
PFL is what he wants to do until PFL figures out what the fuck they want to do. So I think that his viable option is to stay at Bellator and instead of go to PFL, use it as a bargaining chip for ONE rather than with PFL.
Before I rule who wins, I just tell you guys said where they should go. Just one word. Where will he end up, Riley?
Bellator.
Ryan, you guys say Bellator too. Okay.
Bellator.
All right. Should I announce who wins now, or should I let them think about it?
Go to the next round, and we'll figure it out after that. That's where the excitement comes in, Keith.
All right. Same question. Patrick, you're up. You're the manager of. Yeah, not even. Michael Chandler comes to you, says, "Whatever you say, I'm going to do." What are you saying?
I mean, it's very obvious. I'm going to have him do exactly what he's doing right now. He's saying he's testing free agency. He's not really testing free agency. He's going to stay with Bellator. They're going to pay him a ridiculous amount of money. He's going to get a bunch of sponsorships. Coker just lost Rory McDonald. They're not going to let Chandler go too. After trying to keep Rory McDonald too. I mean, that's an important fact. It wasn't like Coker just said, "Okay, go out the door." Like, they tried to keep him and they couldn't. So they're going to need Chandler, especially for the Pitbull rematch. I mean, are you kidding me? That's too good of an opportunity for Bellator to let slip through their fingers. And as Riley pointed out, Chandler is good and can probably, do well in the UFC or other promotions. But, does he want to risk it, especially for the UFC's pay structure? Does he want to lose his sponsors? Does he really want to go through all that when he's kind of, despite having just lost the belt, he's still kind of the big fish in a small pond at Bellator? I don't see it happening. I'm pretty sure Chandler is just saying he's going into free agency just so he can try and get a higher offer from another promotion and then go back to Bellator and say, can you match this? And they will. And that'll be that. I would tell him, hey, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Congrats. And that's all I would have to tell Michael Chandler.
Sean, Patrick brought the heat. What's your response?
Look, this is all going to come down to one thing, where he goes, and I can't believe anybody's mentioned it. And I don't know the answer for sure. I would tend to agree with everyone that it's going to stay at Bellator, and that's my guess. This is all going to come down to Michael Chandler's ego. How big is this dude's ego? Because if he thinks he can hang in the UFC, I think he's going to try. He shouldn't, because I agree with everyone here. I don't think he can hang. I think it'd be a rude awakening a la Ben Askren. He's not out as old as Askren when he came over, which, side point, not even my matchup. I still think the UFC won the trade with Mighty Mouse, but that's a conversation for a different day. Look, Chandler, the most money, if he's thinking money, he's staying at Bellator. If he's thinking legacy, he's probably coming to the UFC. And I got to go back to Kyle's question because I had an answer ready for it. He also asked if he did come to the UFC, who would he fight? And I thought about this. I would like to see Michael Chandler and Gregor Gillespie. I think that's a win-win type of matchup. I think either Gregor's back on track or we get Michael Chandler coming off of a name and Gregor's still young and can bounce back. That's a fight. I almost want him to come to the UFC because I kind of want to see that fight. Just if Chandler were in any other division, I would say come to the UFC. But this is don't be messing around with the UFC lightweights. You are gonna hurt your legacy and hurt your wallet.
Before I rule, I love that Sean gave me an actual fight. Who, if he goes to UFC, he should fight first. So Patrick, if he does sign the UFC, you're the matchmaker. Who should he fight first?
If he does go to the UFC, which again is not going to happen, I would love to see him fight Charles Oliveira. I think that'd be a great fight. I think it'd be super fun. To Sean's points though about the ego stuff, since I can't understand that argument based on he's had the opportunity to leave and go to UFC before, and he's re-signed with Bellator. And if he's worried about ego, why would he not go beat Pitbull for that belt again after just losing it when he thought it was a bad?
This is his
that's all I'm
last
going to say
chance.
about it.
This is his last chance. The only difference is and I get ego could make him want to go back and fight Pitbull. The difference with the UFC contract, this is his last chance. He's not going to be in free agency at 33 again. Like this, if he's going to do it, it's now or never. I think that's the difference.
Depends on the contract length, man.
Yeah, I do agree with you though. He's likely staying in Bellator. He should stay in Bellator.
Yeah. I want to know who should Chandler fight if he does go to UFC? Riley, first
Anthony
fight.
Pettis.
Ooh, I like that. And Ryan.
I think it'd be a war if we saw him against the Irish Dragon.
Oh yes, that's a great fight. So I got a rule. So now both you guys had really good points. I was neck and neck between Riley and Ryan. I really want to go with Ryan because he actually picked the fight that I didn't. Listen, let me answer. I was going to pick him because he picked Paul Felder, who's the guy I said he should fight, and I had a backup plan of Ali Quinter if that fight didn't go through. But I can't pick Ryan for one reason. He had me all the way. He had me all the way with the one championship. But he didn't mention the trilogy fight against Eddie Alvarez. That fight was there for him. That his biggest rival finishing the trilogy. And I can't believe that none of you guys said that. I'm ashamed of all you guys.
I was going to.
I was going to ask that girl to the prom, but I didn't. I'm ashamed of all you guys. None of you guys brought that up. So listen, you're all living. Anyways, Ryan came in 5 minutes moment, but I can't let him off the hook for that. So Riley's in the final. Ryan came in on short notice. This is as controversial as the Trevin Giles versus James Krause decision. So this is where I eliminate you. You have to knock yourself out, but I gotta insult you as you wait the dog. So adding Ryan to the show was the worst decision I've made since I let Jon Jones borrow my car. Ryan, get out of here. You can stick right. You don't really have to stick right. You can stick right. Just you gotta be quiet. All right. So I love the point about the ego. Love it. And and I don't even remember what the hell Patrick's points were, but he had some really good points. But the fact that I love that Shaun was the first person to bring up the ego. If the only reason he goes to the UFC is if he goes to ego. But Patrick, the really good point that I liked that he made about was the Rory McDonald, that they did lose Rory McDonald. But I can't believe that nobody said, you're 33 years old. It's really about the money. You're probably not going to win the championship in either organization at this point. If you're going to want to make the most money, go over to the PFL. They've given up $1 million. Lance Palmer has $2 million.
But you sprain a big toe at the wrong time, and your paycheck is hurt.
Yeah.
Like Bellator will just rebook you. Like PFL is a risk. It's a calculation.
It is a risk, but I mean, Nathan Schultz has a lot bigger bank account right now than Michael Chandler does. And I actually think Patrick made a good point about Bell. I actually have all the organizations we talked about. I mean, not one championship. I actually think Bellator has the weakest lightweight. I actually think PFL has a better lightweight division right now than, I mean, who's the competition other than Pitbull? And when he loses to AJ McKee, then that fight's not going to be that one. Anyways, I liked the point by Shaun. Shaun, you're in the finals. Plus, I told Patrick there was no way I was going to let him win anyways after that comment to start the show. So, the showdown, we got...
Patrick.
So, the higher seed is Shaun. Shaun, you want to go first or you want to go second?
I'll keep going.
Wait, you're not gonna You're not gonna insult me and let me.
Oh yeah, let me insult you.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta insult you. Yeah, Patrick. Yeah, asking you to be a full-time panelist was the worst decision since I moved next door to Ashley Evans Smith.
Well, before I go, I just want to point out, Keith, that you made your decision based purely on bias. Which is exactly what you railed Mike X for at the beginning of the show. So you become the very thing you hate. I'm dropping off the call. I'll see you guys later.
Well,
that's going to be great because as Kyle hits us, we are going to light him up all year.
Yeah. Wait. But the best thing about this one not being on video is people don't see my face turn around. My face didn't turn around in the episode because I've been hosting. So, final question: Shaun versus Riley. So we've had Bellator announce today that their entire they've already canceled all 3 fights for the month of May. The UFC has had to cancel 3 cards already. UFC London, UFC Columbus, UFC Portland. So out of those 6 cards, or you can go anywhere else. UFC 249 is officially not canceled yet. Riley believes it's going to happen. Shaun believes it's not. I'm sorry, Shaun, you said you're going to go second again, right? So to me, Riley, what is the one fight that you are most disappointed that got canceled so far because of the coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, obviously KSW 53 in Poland. No, I actually am pretty sad about that. But no, I don't see how you pick a fight other than Rosenstruck and Francis Ngannou. I mean, if you're a guy like me, I love watching lightweight guys fight just because of the speed and precision. But the fact of the matter is that every MMA fan cannot resist a knockout heavyweight fight. And that fight, literally, I don't think it was going to leave the first minute because those two were just going to stand in the pocket and just throw heaters at each other the entire time. And what's better than watching 265-pound guys just throwing hands until one of them falls down? I think that had the chance. That was going to be probably the number 1 contender for the heavyweight championship once Stipe and Daniel Cormier finally decide to fight each other. And that would have been a great fight just in terms of pure violence. And I know that you said, you work for Sherdog. You guys do the all violence team every year. I've occasionally perused your site. And the fact of the matter,
at least one of us do.
Yeah, well, sometimes I accidentally type in it wrong in my browser, but and that brings me there. But that's the fight right there that everyone was looking forward to because as much as, like we said, we love lighter weight guys, heavyweight knockout fights are really what are the big sellers in terms of the fight game, and it doesn't matter if it's UFC or boxing.
Shaun, you heard his answer. You can actually pick the same answer. You just got to argue it better. But you're shaking your head. What is your answer, Shaun?
Well, first I'm going to take a slight dig because I'm looking forward to that fight. But you can't just assume it's going to be a great fight in the first minute. The last time I did that in an Ngannou fight, it was Ngannou, Derek Lewis, and I still haven't woken up from watching that thing. So you can't always assume. Probably great, but I can go heavyweight fight with a better backstory. Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris. I wanted to see Walt Harris in the cage. the whole tragic backstory. Aside from the fact it's heavyweights, I think there was going to be a knockout. The guy probably needs the money, and Walt Harris, the guy I'm now rooting for. I'm, like all of us here, a hardcore MMA fan. Alistair Overeem fights, they're usually fun. Like, that was a card. I mean, I can go. I don't want to bring up the whole card. You said one fight, but like Overeem Harris had the same close to. I'm probably going to see a knockout in this fight, and you got all the backstory. Walt Harris was all over the media. Like, it was, the coverage was everywhere. I wanted to see him fight. What was going to happen? Is his head is going to be there? Is Alistair Overeem done? There were tons. We got heavyweights plus more of a backstory in that one, at least for me. I have different opinions on Rosenstrike, which, again, different episodes. So for me, it was Overeem Harris. I wanted to see some violence, and I wanted to see what was going to happen with Walt Harris.
Yes, you guys both picked heavy. Riley, you want to jump in there?
Oh, I just think he just tried to be sneaky right there and pulling your heartstrings. Because if he wins now, I'm just going to blame it on him trying to be sentimental.
Well, I'll say this. I will say this. He pulled on the heartstrings. It didn't work. Our winner is Shaun. He pulled on the heartstrings. I think his just. I could imagine. I think I could see picture people crying on his entrance to the cage, and if he won, which I think he was going to win. Yeah.
Agreed.
So Shaun, 30 seconds. You can talk about anything you want. Riley, go put a shirt on and I don't know.
I'm gonna use part of this time just to acknowledge Riley. I can't believe I think I threw a shot out there earlier, but if you do this show the whole time, like I'm just gonna call you Bert. Like, you're Bert Kreischer to me. that is what's gonna happen here. For my time, MMA is obviously. I'm happy to be back. If you had not played DraftKings yet, we have a betting show. I believe you can kind of. Do we have a betting show on the network? Not yet.
All right, you tell me. We're working on it.
DraftKings stuff, hit me up. I'm on Twitter at @sniper_DFS Army over there. So when you're watching fights, have a little bit of money down. I always think it makes it a little better. Bet with your head, not over it. It's the usual disclaimer. And you know what? I'm happy to be back and pulling on heartstrings. And Keith, I can't wait for you to get in here next week so I can take you down too.
Yeah. Oh, so guys, there you have it. The very first champion on the brand new Last One Standing podcast is Shaun Ihasz. Guys, this is the first episode. It was very rocky. Like I said, I got it on. Me and Ryan both took on 5 minutes notice. Kyle will be here next week. The big reason why I wanted to keep this one is we had all the guys here, but most of all, listen, people need to listen to stuff. They're dying for information. They're bored with whatever they're doing at home, dealing with their kids. So we just wanted to get content out. Next week it'll be a lot cleaner with Kyle, the host. But for me, Keith Shillan, Shaun Ihasz, Riley Kontek, Patrick Auger, and our special guest coming in 5 minutes notice, Ryan Sprague. This is Last One Standing. See you guys next week.